Ew, ew. Let me get the mic close. Let me get the mic close. Grand Rising, y'all know what it is. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I was going to do the traditional beat, but hold up. Let me give y'all know how we start off. Let me give y'all a little bit of something I've been worrying on. You feel me? Let me know how y'all feeling about this one. Hold on.
Would you give me peace of mind?
Actually, nah, I probably can't play that one.
To make it better for us.
Actually.
Demons come
What y'all think about this beat? But we gonna go back to the regular one. After I was thinking about it, I'm like, hold on, let's just start off the regular way. Grand Rising, good people, y'all know what it is. Lucille was in here early today, so you know we appreciate that. We got a cool show for y'all today. We're gonna talk about a bunch of different topics. And the challenge is to get through it all in no longer than an hour and 15 minutes. And I know y'all heard what I said. That's right. I said the challenge is to get through it in no longer than an hour and 15 minutes. So we're saying 9:15, giving us grace to 9:20. We're going to get through all this. We got to talk about, we got a reading from, for OG Elevate, a reading from the 12 Laws of the Universe. Just read that. Dope book. Dope read. We're going to touch on a video that we're supposed to watch, I think like a week ago, on the disappearance of men. We got some Leah Thomas news. We got a little Sage Steele. What else we got? We got a guy named Alan Savory, an ecologist. He has an interesting take on peer-reviewed science versus academia, or I should say science versus peer-reviewed academia disguised as science. So we'll get into that a little bit. Then we got the team at Valuetainment with Patrick Bet-David giving us a few different interesting videos back to back. We're going to talk about a lady from the World Economic Forum, Jane Goodall. I believe she deals with primates mostly, but she made some interesting comments at the World Economic Forum that we have to dive in. We're going to take a look at my man Joe Biden getting his little two-step on at the Juneteenth celebration, and we're going to finish off with a quote from the undisputed GOAT, Tom Brady. All right, so that's what we got today. Let me make sure that we hold on. Let me give y'all the Grand Rising good people real quick. As I already told y'all, Lucille was waiting. Appreciate that. Waiting for the time to join in with my beautiful people. Lucille, you are appreciated. Good morning, sending love, light, and blessings on this beautiful Friday. Appreciate that. Thank you so much, Lucille. And as everybody else is joining, please make sure that you're liking. Please make sure that you like for the algorithm. And even do us one better. Everybody right now, real quick. I already did it, but I'll do it again with y'all. You see where it says share right there? Next to the thumbs up, right when you click that thumbs up, you might as well just hop over the thumbs down, click share, copy the link, send it to a friend. All right, you don't have to throw it on your Instagram or anything like that. Just send it to a friend and it'll be greatly appreciated. Look, the more people that can engage in the conversation, the better. Y'all know that. We want different perspectives, all right? We don't want to be like Representative Claiborne and Byrne and brag about being around people that all think the same way as us and vote the same way as us. We want different perspectives to the table. That's the only way that we're going to be able to learn and elevate, all right? So that's what we embrace here. So I'm going to start off today with the reading. This book, 12 Laws of the Universe. Very interesting read. I actually read it. When did I fly back? I think I flew back on Tuesday. And I read it. You'll read it in one day. It's a very easy read. I think it's more like a pamphlet. It's only about 80 pages, and it's a fast read. But they had an interesting segment in this book. As a matter of fact, do y'all even know the 12 Laws of the Universe? Hold on, let me try to read them. I think I could only find 11. I didn't want to leave out of my... Hold on, let me see if I can read them for you. Hold on. Chapter. I didn't want to leave where I'm at. All right, so the 12 laws in the universe. And why I'm reading it is because, in my opinion, we mostly focus on the law of attraction. All right. And I gotta admit, I've fallen into this, if you want to call it a trap as well. And you don't realize that there's a whole lot of other laws that come into play when we talk about, our subconscious becoming our conscious, and that determining the reality that we're living in. But a lot of times we only focus on the law of attraction. That's more so, like the book, The Secret. So that's kind of like the first step into these universal laws. But for us to maximize our potential, like we always talk about, and get the most out of ourselves, we are going to have to lean into not just the law of attraction, but the other laws. And how can you lean into them without knowing them? So I definitely recommend this book. So real quickly, I'll go through all 12 laws. So the law of divine oneness, the law of vibration, the law of attraction that we were discussing, the law of correspondence, the law of action, the law of cause and effect, the law of compensation, the law of perpetual transmutation of energy, the law of relativity, the law of polarity, the law of rhythm, and the law of gender. All right, so now y'all gonna have to give me a chance to get back to my bookmark. This is why I didn't want to mess around with y'all. Hold on 1 second. I think we were on page 28. Hold on. I'm not going to let y'all throw me off. Yeah, I found it. So I came across a quote from my guy. So I don't know if I've told y'all before, but Wayne Dyer, that's my guy. That's the who I go to for a lot of the affirmations. And if y'all haven't checked out the affirmation that we put together, y'all should do that. But I go to Wayne Dyer for a lot of my affirmations before I go to sleep, when I wake up. Just very, very much a good person to listen to, either to set your intentions for the day or to remind yourself to unplug and get your mind right before you go to sleep. So there was an interesting segment. I'm going to get right into it. This particular subchapter is called Money Vibes. So y'all take a listen. Let me know what y'all think. Let us take money as an example. We all want more money, right? But it is one of those topics that are often entangled with deep-rooted restrictive beliefs. We want more money, but we never have enough money. When our neighbors announce that they would spend $50,000 on renovations, we feel jealous. When our friends can afford things when our friends could afford things we couldn't afford, we would say it must be good. In all these cases, it comes from fear and lack, which is certainly not the vibrations that will attract a lot of cash. If left unchecked, these belief patterns will manifest in our external reality as things like parking tickets, overdue bills, or unexpected expenses. Of course, this only reinforces belief and keeps the cycle going. So then we have a quote from Wayne Dyer, which says, "You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are." And I'm going to read a couple more paragraphs. Instead, we must first align ourselves with the inner vibration of abundance, and then the outer reality will begin to respond accordingly. It is certainly not easy when it comes to certain topics that we emphasize, but when it comes to topics with little or no resistance, things change surprisingly fast. Many of us are unaware of our restrictive beliefs and the restraints in our vibrations. This is why meditation is very important to help you clear and calm your mind. They give a little bit of advice. If you want to change your external environment, you must do the inner work first. Stand still, clarify, and watch your situation begin to change. So that reminds us about what we always talk about when we refer to being the change. Y'all know that's Queez, what he always brings to the table. Be the change. Anything that we want to see in the world, become it. All right. And I want to go back to that Wayne Dyer quote. We don't attract what we want. We attract what we are. So if we want to become more, if we want to more abundance coming our way, okay, we have to see ourselves in a more abundant manner. We have to how would we conduct ourselves if we were already experiencing this abundance? That seems to be how the universe works. All right. If we want to attract, becoming healthier, then we have to see ourselves as healthier beings. We have to do the activities that come along with being healthier beings. It's very fitting. A lot of times we may sit here and think like, okay, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. That's me manifesting it. No, there's a lot of other things that go into it. And when we accept who we are as far as it pertains to the things that we want, then we're going to also make sure that our actions align with those things as well. So without being long-winded, y'all get what it is. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. So if you aren't feeling the things that are coming into your life right now, then maybe you need to change who you are. Maybe we need to change who we are. All right, so what's going to be the first topic for today? Already got my bookmarks laid out. Should we just go into, all right, so let's actually, so the video that I told y'all that I wanted to show y'all a couple days ago, it's about a 10-minute video, but we're going to get through it pretty fast. We're going to get through it pretty fast. Wasn't necessarily going to start off with that video, but I think it is good for us. Hold on one second. I'm going to talk like I had it queued up. And then hold on. Matter of fact, we'll just start with the first video. All right, so just an update. An update on, I'm not sure. We've talked about swimmer Lia Thomas before. She's she was born a young man, and now she's fighting to be in the Olympics. Let's hear a little bit about her story, what her challenges are right now. And I want to get your opinion and really just ask ourselves once again, how did we get here? How did we arrive at this point? So let's play this. Let me share it. And let's take a listen. Oh,
sport,
shoot.
it's also
My
known
bad.
as CAS, says she lacks
Hold on.
standing
My
to
fault. Y'all weren't
overturn
hearing
the
it the
rules.
entire time?
Now, for our viewers, you may
Hold on.
remember.
Morning in America weekend anchor Henna Doba joins us now with more. Good morning. It's great to see you. It's fun to be in box court.
I'll fast forward a little bit.
Lia Thomas has sought to participate in the 2024 Summer Olympic Games. That's every athlete's dream. She argued that the world's aquatic gender inclusion policy was invalid, unlawful, and discriminatory. But the Switzerland-based Court for Arbitration of Sport, it's also known as CAS, says she lacks standing to overturn the rules. Now, for our viewers, you may remember Lia Thomas. She dominated the world of competitive swimming, becoming the 2022 NCAA champion in the 500-yard freestyle and All-American in 3 of the women's swimming and diving championships. She is also the first known male-born athlete to win an NCAA Division I women's title. We should mention just 3 years before winning all those accolades and all those awards, Thomas was competing at the University of Pennsylvania, but she was competing as a man. Now, the World Aquatic Swimming International governing body established.
Let me stop it right there. I think we got everything that we needed from that video. It's gotten to the point where I don't even want to keep harping on these things because it really makes me feel like I'm going crazy. I just want us to ask ourselves and constantly remind ourselves, how did we get here? Why does it take a Switzerland council to rule against a man, somebody who was born a man with obvious physical advantages, to tell us and to set an example for us that this just doesn't make any sense? You have no grounds to stand on. This is just wrong, is what they're saying. It makes no sense. But of course, here in America, the greatest country in the world, right? Here in America, it's like we can't even make sense of this. We can't even make sense of this. How do we get to a point where this is normalized in our country, where we have some of our top female influencers like a Dawn Staley get asked as a head coach, somebody who's played basketball, understands the difference between male sports and female sports, but still get asked a question as far as if somebody born a man like Leah Thomas should be allowed to compete with women in sports. And what is their response? Yes. This is just another example that there obviously is an agenda being pushed. And this is another example why I want to bring this up, because this is the problem when you have such polarizing parties. When you look at the Democrats, Republicans, or religion across the board, we end up allowing a lot of foolishness to occur just because we dislike each other. Now, what do I mean by that? Most people, it doesn't matter what side of the Democrat or Republican, you can come to the table and say like, hey, does it make sense for somebody who was competing against men 3 years ago or 2 years ago or a year ago to now be able to compete against women just because they decided that, I feel like more of a woman, so I should be able to compete against women. Does that make sense? Of course it doesn't make sense. And that's just one example of where Democrats and Republicans, people who just for whatever reason, we've gotten to a point where there's no objectivity. All sense has gone out the window. But when we do this and we become so polarized, we have things like this that people will actually fight for and argue for, that it's legit just because I'm on one side of the fence and I'm pushing my agenda. So this is the problem with polarization. Not going to spend too much time on it because I told y'all we're going to get out of here on time today. All right. So that's the first one I wanted to show you. So now that let me go to the other video that's queued up. This is the longer video that I want y'all to take a listen to and get y'all opinion, because I've told y'all before where I think all of this falls on the lack of male leadership. Men trying to compromise themselves to be by women, to be celebrated by these particular organizations that, in my opinion, are pushing evil agendas. But for whatever reason, when you give people a backing, when you give people money, when you give people praise, sometimes that can become intoxicating to the point where we don't even care what we have to do in order to receive those things. So let's take a look at this. I thought it was an interesting video. We may not watch the full video, but we're going to get through as much as we can and get y'all insight about this young lady telling us about the disappearance of men. But I'm open to hear your perspective. All perspectives are welcome.
Some circles, phrases like, when we do talk about masculinity, we're often talking about it in negative terms. In some circles, phrases like men are trash or men are garbage have become de rigueur. I think the word that people most associate with masculinity right now is the word toxic, which doesn't really bode well for the whole thing. So it's hard to be convincing when you say men are in trouble. After all, look around us. All 45 US presidents have been men, and probably the next president will be one too. If you look at the S&P 500 a few years ago, there are actually more CEOs named Michael or James than there are women CEOs, period. But that said, most men...
I thought that was wild. I did think that was wild as I'm watching it. And I just think it's wild the fact that, okay, just those two names, obviously popular names, but I just thought that was wild.
Aren't CEOs, and most men aren't president of the United States. It's easy to focus in on a certain set of men that are doing well and realize that the majority of men are not hanging on so well. I'm Christine Emba. I'm an author and a journalist, and my latest book is Rethinking Sex, A Provocation. So, what are the trends that have led men to struggle in this moment? I think that there are three key areas where we can clearly see that men are struggling, perhaps even, yes, in crisis. Our labor market is struggling, perhaps even.
I want to highlight this. Labor market, education, domestic life. The fact that men are struggling in these areas stands out to me a bit. And just so y'all know, this is really me going through this the first time. Like the first time I just was kind of listening to it in the background. I never really even paid attention to the graphics. But the labor market, what is the biggest finesse that we experience in this country when it comes to the labor market? Colleges. Us being lied to and embracing the understanding that college is the way to go. And if we just go to college and get a good education, then we'll be fine. We'll be able to get a job and, work our 9-to-5s and retire with a little money, when we're in our 60s or 70s. And then we'll start living life. I heard Charleston White say something about this when it comes to the labor market, that back in the day, whether it was, I don't want to get in trouble for saying the Jim Crow era, but during those times, a lot of Black people were taking on trades. Trades were more of a thing. Then those kids, or the baby boomers or whatever generation, the boomers, I would say, they pretty much were the first generation to move away from the labor and to accept more so just the education. So it probably happened like this, and I think this is how Charleston White was describing it. Around the Jim Crow era, Black people had skills. Their kids then had, they understood the importance of skills, had the skills, but they leaned more into the education. Their kids just valued more so the education. And that's like the boomers and everything like that. And that's probably the generation where a lot of the labor, the trades, the skills, those things were lost. And then what ends up happening, I was just having a conversation with my dad yesterday where we were playing golf with somebody and they said, oh, young guy just became a lawyer. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, too many lawyers. Like, that's going to be a tough career to get in now. It's just too many. And this is the same thing that we're seeing with a lot of these college education careers that you need to go to college for. You're convinced to go to college for, then you get your career. So now what are they selling you on? Okay, well, college education isn't enough. Now you have to go to grad school. What we're really getting away from are the trades, teaching our kids to be mechanics, to be plumbers, because what comes with the trades is the opportunity to also become an entrepreneur. It's the opportunity to learn and understand growing business. A lot of the skills that go into growing a business, whether it's sales, marketing, all these things, these are survival skills. But right now, we're not learning any of those things. All we're learning is how to become better students, workers, but there's not the opportunities that were there for our parents when they graduated college compared to when we graduate college. It's just not there. So then education, obviously leaning onto the education system. That video that we put up with showing the kindergarten class in Japan, I believe it was a Japanese kindergarten class last week. Did you see how advanced those kids were compared to when it came to the athleticism, the coordination, all these different areas compared to American kids? This is the same thing that's happening across the board when it comes to education. When we look at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, compared to, IIT, the Indian Institute of Technology, they are crushing us when it comes to the scores. Crushing us. We have low standards. We live in a participation trophy world. We do not compete. And while we're doing all these things, other people, there's a reason why Indians are making more money than white Americans and Black Americans or people that have been here for generations. There's a reason why certain Asian groups are surpassing a lot of the accomplishments that white and Black Americans have, or people that have been here for, generations. There is a reason. Domestic life. We talk about it all the time. Why do we not learn how to, what we should look for in a woman, what we should look for in a man, and a husband, a wife? Why do we not learn how to communicate with a significant other? We learn about all these other irrelevant things in school where we can, at this point, acknowledge that it's just babysitting, but it's on us as the generation of adults to now make certain changes with that stuff. On a day-to-day basis, how much of the things that you learn from the ages of 4 years old when they had pre-K to when you graduated college, how much of that do you use on a day-to-day basis? And let me ask you this. If you had to be taught more valuable skills that you rely on on a day-to-day basis compared to what we did learn, how long would it take us to learn those things? And would the best way be for us to learn those things in the classroom? Let's keep going. I know I'm rambling. Sorry.
And yes, in crisis. Our labor market has changed over the past several decades due to globalization and deindustrialization. We have now moved towards a more credentialed favoring economy where things like brute strength aren't as valued as they used to be. Some of the jobs and areas that used to be fairly male-coded, male-centric, safe areas for men to work, the industrial sector, etc., are now kind of gone. And many of the men who used to be in those spaces are no longer there. We're seeing a drop in employment in men, especially.
I have to highlight that one. When it comes to the strength, the physical strength, in my opinion, that's a big issue because I believe that leads to a lot of insecurities, us not taking care of our health, and it leads to not only physical insecurities, but mental insecurities. What we used to be doing when you're working with your hands, when you're doing physical activity, when you're regarded as a strong person and you're taking care of all these things, in my opinion, you're going to walk around with a different level of confidence. I think it's healthy to be doing physical activities rather than just mental or, sitting at a desk and solving issues all day. There needs to be a better balance, in my opinion. There needs to be a better balance. And I think that it impacts us in ways outside of the obvious areas as far as just our health and the fact that we're not as strong. They did the study that we showed maybe a couple months ago where it was like the grip strength of a man in the 50s, a 65-year-old man in the 60s or 70s is the grip strength now of like a 21-year-old or a 30-year-old. Insane. So y'all may not think it plays a part. I do.
Young men. In fact, men ages 25 to 34 are among the groups that have dropped out the most from the labor market, which is surprising because these are prime working age men. Then we're seeing issues in education. Obviously, Title IX was a good thing and it allowed many more women into the educational sphere. But now you're seeing a sort of flip from men earning most of the college degrees to women doing the same. There was a huge decline in college enrollment during the pandemic, and looking back at the numbers, 70% of the dropouts are men.
Not necessarily a bad thing.
And then you get to the domestic sphere.
In my opinion, based on what I was talking about earlier with forget the college, get more trades, learn more skills, go on YouTube. If you are going to go to college, go to county college for a couple years. Stop doing silly things like making a $100,000, $200,000 investment and not even knowing what you want to learn. We don't even know what we want in return, but they convinced us. Think about that investment that we make when it comes to college. How would this make sense in any other area of our lives to where we make an investment where we don't even know what we want in return? Oh, well, you don't need to know what you're going to major in. You don't need to know that's the game that we get caught up in. Take a gap year, work, and then maybe go to county college, figure out what you want to do, be able to appreciate the education that you're learning because you have more real world experience. So you know exactly how it's going to be applicable to when you do graduate. And that way you're going to not only get the most out of your education, you're going to be able to save, your first 2 years with going to county college and hopefully be more mature, get better grades, and then use that to apply to get more of a scholarship at another school. But at the very least, you will not have to spend 4 years of these outrageous prices. You can spend 2 years or maybe less and make sure that you're maximizing your experience there because you know exactly what you're there for. It's more of an intentional experience.
Stagnating wages, labor market participation, and falling educational rates have downstream effects in domestic life. 34% of young women approximately say that they're single. Nearly 63% of young men say that they are.
Wait.
More women than men say that they're finding trouble finding a partner, so men, who live up to their standards. You also see a little bit of destabilization in traditional roles.
Yes. Let's be real. Ladies, y'all need to keep it real too. I know we're not living up to forget living up to women's standards. Fellas, we are not living up to our standards. Our standards should exceed what a woman's standards are for us. we need to make sure that we are setting the bar for ourselves. We're setting the bar for our brothers. We have that camaraderie. We have those groups that hold each other accountable just so we can become the best leaders that we can become for us, and understanding that that's the role that we have to play. So forget all these women's expectations and women's standards. We have to set those standards for ourselves first and foremost, because if we just do them for women, we're never going to be consistent with them. That is our purpose. That should be, it should align with our purpose, in my opinion.
Relationships. When you think of kind of traditional relational arrangements where there's one higher earner and one lower earner, that perspective has also shifted over time too. Almost 50% of women say that they earn as much as or more than their partner, which is a huge shift from just a few decades ago. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, in the same way that women overachieving in education is definitely not a bad thing. But they have provided a sense of destabilization, perhaps a feeling that the world isn't exactly as it used to be, and men are struggling to find what their place is in the new arrangement. So I also think about the number of men who seem like they've just disappeared from society. These are men who are known as NEETs in the sort of wonky parlance, not in education, employment, or training.
Real quick, let me ask y'all this. Is this something that you see in your day-to-day lives? Because a lot of times we see things on a video, but we don't feel that a connection with that actually happening in our lives. Is this something that you all recognize, ladies and fellas? Is this something that y'all recognize? Maybe y'all can give a little feedback in the chat, or just at least say whether or not you recognize it with the younger generation, with ourselves. You know, just, is this something that is relevant, or is this something that, hey, I don't even know, this is just BS, whatever? Y'all tell me.
So what are they up to? Well, it seems like they're on the internet. Many of them are at home, sort of pouring out their woes to these online forums, whether it's incel forums or men going their own way discussion groups, where they talk about how dissatisfied they are with life and how it feels like the world has wronged them. Then you're seeing a lot of men playing video games, frankly, instead of engaging with the world.
Hey, Cuzzo, I saw your comment as far as when they care about us. I got a question afterwards, because I'm trying to let me just.
And that's actually compelling in understandable ways. It does seem like gaming gives you the opportunity to achieve goals or achieve success in a way that might not be as visible in the real world if you aren't able to find fulfilling employment, or if you feel like you're left out of other societal pursuits. You also see men following what I term manfluencers. People like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, and Joe Rogan, who I think are sort of stoking their, like Jordan Peterson.
This is one thing I didn't like. Now, I don't know, maybe somebody can confirm. If you look at the screen, when you look at Andrew Tate's, I don't know if he ever had this on his page. Maybe he was trolling, I don't know. But if you look at his description on X, what does it say? It says human trafficker because I told friends how to post on TikTok. All right, so maybe this is just a little bit of a troll, because I was sitting here, I'm like, yo, did he really have that on his page, or did they? So I assume that he had it on. Keep going.
Tate and Joe Rogan, who I think are sort of stoking their sadness and fears while telling them that the world is what's done them wrong. You also see men following what I term manfluencers.
I want y'all to listen to that again.
People like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, and Joe Rogan, who I think are sort of stoking their sadness and fears while
she said that these people are stoking their sadness and fears.
The world is what's done them.
Stoking their sadness and fears and telling them that the world is what's done them wrong. That's what she just said. That's what she just said about, hold on, I just want to pull up these three people. This is why it's a problem. And I'm going to sit here and ask the question that I had. First off, imagine if this role was reversed. Imagine a black man putting together a 10-minute presentation on what's wrong with women nowadays. Imagine that. Matter of fact, I think we had it, right? That's what you would call a Kevin Samuels. Somebody who, when they died, you got Vivica Fox talking about, what was Vivica saying? Like, he got what he deserved, or said something like that, allegedly. I don't want to say the exact words, but the fact that she's misrepresenting these three men, acting as if because they're talking to men and encouraging men to do better and talking about the realities of the world that we live in and how the world has emasculated us and how we need to take ownership and of fixing our own problems. That's what each three of these men discuss. But she categorized it as almost as if they're playing victim. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? And this is what people do. This is why perhaps some people, I'm not going to say aren't qualified to give their feedback on this, but clearly she has no understanding of how these three men in particular, how men receive the information that they give to us. But instead, she'll sit here and act as if they're just giving this. These are not the victims. These are not the people that encourage men to be victims. Andrew Tate does not encourage men to be victims. Joe Rogan does not encourage men to be victims. Jordan Peterson does not encourage that. Matter of fact, these men they're the ones that will call men out on our stuff. And it depending on which one you're listening to, is going to come across differently. But especially when you hear Andrew Tate, like how could she even, it's just very biased. It's very biased.
People like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, and Joe Rogan, who I think are sort of stoking their sadness and fears while telling them that the world.
And what's so funny is, what do women always talk about when it comes to toxic masculinity? It's always, oh, you need to be more vulnerable. You need to express how you're feeling more. This is why, fellas, don't ever let women set standards for us. We set our own standards. They say all that, you hear people say, oh, be vulnerable, tell me how you feel. But then you have people that do tell you exactly how you feel, do tell you exactly how they feel. And not only do they tell you how they feel, they tell you how they're not using it as an excuse and why the men that they're speaking to shouldn't use it either, and to take ownership and to not play this victim game. But how does it come across to her?
Influencers. People like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, and Joe Rogan, who I think are sort of stoking their sadness and fears while telling them that the world is what's done them wrong. And the thing is, I can't say that they're all bad. In fact, there is some good there, perhaps much good. When I talk to young men, especially about what Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan give them, one of the first things that they actually cite is just empathy. These men actually do seem to feel for the struggles that young men and other men are facing, and they're really straightforward about that. And then they also try and provide solutions. So Jordan Peterson famously says,
why are they always trying to, maybe I'm picking at it too much. Empathy is more understanding. Sympathy is more feeling, right? That was my understanding. Maybe I'm off in my terms. Having empathy is not based on the feeling aspect. It's an understanding. It's a logical standpoint. Maybe y'all will see it as no big difference, but all right.
Clean up your room.
And while that sounds like pretty basic and straightforward advice, to me, in fact, it seems like something that your dad or grandfather should have told you. It speaks to men who don't have that father figure or that male mentor in their life who can tell them what to do.
We just did 25 minutes at 196 degrees. I got a new sauna.
And not just a script for the basics. Many of these manfluencers provide a script for how to live, whether it's a particular all-meat diet or a way of working out that will transform them into some kind of better man. And then they also talk about masculinity with a sort of specificity that makes it feel aspirational. Many of them describe the process of manhood as a challenge, as a summit that the aspiring young man can surmount while these guys are basically cheering them on. And that's appealing to men who have heard masculinity or manhood denigrated or who aren't sure what direction to turn.
But if I could do it, trust me when I tell you, you could do it.
You can't put all of these people in the same category. Everybody's just different. And as I'm watching this, what's so funny is, like, Liver King, this dude's a liar. This is the one that was talking about saying that he's natural and all this other stuff. And then came out that he was taking steroids and then admitted it, like, as if he was doing something honorable after lying for forever. Then saying like, oh, no, I took them. I just want to get in front of it and say, Stop it. Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, and Andrew Tate are in a totally different category, in my opinion, than men like this. But what ends up happening is, and you'll hear it maybe later on, is people will grab one thing out of the million other things that you talk about and will create a brand around that and try to tarnish your image based on those things.
Anybody can become a king.
So there is definitely a positive influence that many of these influencers have had. If only that they're, telling young men, hey, don't just sit on the couch. Maybe go out and talk to girls if you want a girlfriend. Maybe make your bed and find a job, get good at a skill. But there is a downside, and it's a major one. One of the things that's notable about a lot of these manfluencers is that they often discuss masculinity or an ideal manhood in opposition to femaleness.
Men and women are different. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
And in fact, they often spend a lot of time talking about how feminism or feminists or female agency is what's actually bringing men down.
What exactly is going on with women's studies that you believe is fostering revolution?
Well, you go on their websites and read what they say.
Sometimes the worst of these influencers take this rhetoric to action.
I challenge everybody to find the article of what Black Lives Matter, an organization led by LGBTQ women, Black women, and find out what the mission statement was before they took it down. And you tell me if they don't have a valid point in just pointing out certain things. Look, we live in a feminized society. It just is what it is. I don't care who's president. I don't care what. We live in a feminized society. That's just my opinion. But let's get through it. Sorry, let me get
fostering revolution.
Well, you go on their websites and read what they say.
Sometimes the worst of these influencers take this rhetoric to action.
Turn and whack, and I smack her spot.
So you have a figure like Andrew Tate, who's constantly talking about, choking women, hitting women, dominating women.
Andrew Tate, who's constantly talking about choking women and dominating women. This is the problem when you have people that talk about other people that they don't even look at their content. The entire reason why I found Andrew Tate, I didn't know who Andrew Tate was. I don't know the last time I watched an Andrew Tate video, but I don't have an issue with him. Now he's facing a trial. We'll see what comes out after that. And maybe depending on how that goes, maybe I'll change my mind. But for you to sit here and say that he constantly talks about these things, is dominating women, hitting women, that's just a lie. That's just a lie. And you know what's so funny is every time that I've actually sat down and listened to a long form interview or anything with Andrew Tate and send it to a lady or sit down and watch with somebody, the understanding is always totally different. The understanding is totally different. Maybe it's insensitive because, and this is what happens. Andrew Tate is not speaking to women. He's speaking directly to men, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Because when you speak to women, then y'all hate us and celebrate when Kevin Samuels dies, right? So you have somebody who's speaking to men. How I speak to my son, right, is going to be different than how I speak to my daughter. We're different, right? Or are we going with this, everybody's the same thing? So therefore, my communication style and how I need to be effective for men may be different than how if I was communicating to be effective for women. So therefore, you may be turned off by how he's voicing it, but please do not misrepresent what he's saying and say he's constantly talking about beating and hitting women. This is the whole polarization thing that we're talking about. Nobody would listen to. The man is not talking about this type of stuff. He's not. But people try to paint him in a particular picture because he does not align with this mainstream agenda and this emasculated society that we're moving closer and closer towards or actually in.
And more recently has been arrested in Romania for actual sex trafficking.
John,
so some of this advice curdles from empathy to outright misogyny. So while I think that men are worried about their place and are struggling, there has to be a different solution for them moving forward. If we actually want to help men who are in crisis. We have to come up with a positive vision of masculinity.
No, we don't.
One that is aspirational, not denigrating. And I think a positive vision of masculinity has to be one that is...
This is really wild. Like, it gets wild. I'm really just sitting here, black, white, whatever man. I'm just sitting here thinking if a man had this same type of energy towards a group of women, what it would be, telling y'all exactly what the improvements y'all need to make in y'all area. Look, I used to think that I used to critique when we talked more about relationships, critiqued women just like I critiqued men. Women do not accept criticism. Like, as the way that she's giving this information, very direct, as if men should receive it this way. It's very funny because if she was talking to other women, I wonder how she would be able to communicate it to be effective. We know how this would go.
Specific, one that actually speaks to men, that doesn't say, well, men, to be non-toxic, you need to be more like women. But actually, what does it mean to be a man specifically? How is that good, and how can you be better? So what does a positive vision of masculinity actually look like? When I asked men themselves, young men, older men, people I interviewed, there were a few things that came up often. Strength was discussed, not necessarily physical strength, but strength of some kind.
Here we go.
Self-mastery, leadership, responsibility, and care for others. There were discussions about being led by physicality, whether being sort of inspired to great acts by sexual urges or otherwise. But the thing is, I think that many of these traits are actually scaffolded in some ways by biology. Sex drive and assertiveness are both associated with testosterone, the male sex hormone. And I think the key is that you have to channel these traits to be pro-social. Positive masculinity means using traits that feel distinctive to men for the good of others and for the good of society as a whole. When we talk about manhood or manliness or masculinity, we often discuss certain traits, whether it's strength or risk-taking or bravery or something like that. And I think there's a fear that by ascribing certain traits to masculinity, we might be saying that those traits can't be applied to women too.
I'm calling BS on what she's saying. You want to know why I'm calling BS? Because you can live all of these masculine traits, these positive masculine traits that she's talking about. And for her to sit here and act as if women and everybody else, women would just accept that and welcome that, knock it off. Knock it off. We know exactly what happens when a man who's in his masculinity, confident, coming correct, steps in a room, especially with a lot of these women, especially I could tell with a woman like her. You're not, it's almost presented as if, oh, well, if men were like this, then we would feel more comfortable taking. Stop it. Like, stop it. You're trying to portray something like the support is not there for men that are moving like this. It's not just like women are out here celebrating men that are moving in their masculinity in a positive way. It's not happening. Now, let me be also very clear. It doesn't matter, fellas. Like I said, our standards should have nothing to do. Women don't determine a man's standards. We need to determine. We know exactly what we need to do. We know what we need to handle. And we shouldn't allow others to determine our standards because, to be totally honest, they're never going to be as high as what they should be when other people are determining it. We need to determine it for ourselves. We need to be our harshest critic. We need to make sure that we're leveling up across the board.
If we say that good men are strong, does that mean that women have to be weak?
We're back to what we were talking about last show.
If we say that men are leaders, does that mean that women have to be followers?
Let me try to explain this very quickly. Very quickly. The areas that men are supposed to pick up the weight, in. And I kind of wrote that. Matter of fact, last night I wrote down a couple. Leading, let's say being the breadwinner and being the protector. So if those things are on the spectrum, we're not saying that if a man is the breadwinner, that a woman should just be the opposite, just be totally broke. We're not saying that if a man should be the protector, that a woman should just be totally weak. Now, look at the things that a woman may have to take more of a, or I'm trying to think about the words to describe it, that a woman would should be able to lead in these categories. Beauty, this is I was talking to Maya about it. Beauty, doing different things around the house, domestic, chores around that, whatever that may be, leading the home, being the CEO of the home, spiritual, medicinal guidance. So if a woman is supposed to, keep herself, be more aligned with the beauty, that doesn't mean that men are supposed to be ugly. If a woman is supposed to take care of the home, that doesn't mean that men are supposed to destroy the home. If a woman is supposed to be our spiritual and medicinal God, that doesn't mean that men are supposed to just be the devil out here doing evil. But we always look at opposites. No, this is just the category that men are supposed to lead in. Doesn't mean that women have to be at the opposite end of the spectrum and be super weak just because men are supposed to lead in being strong. There can be the balance. It doesn't have to be at the opposite end of the spectrum. But think about it. This is how we think, in just polar opposites. That's the problem. That's the problem. Just because I'm leading in this area, just because I'm taking the lead in this area, doesn't mean that I'm asking you to be terrible in that area, or that you need to be terrible in that area for us to work. It doesn't. It's crazy that we.
I think we're afraid of boxing both sexes in. The thing is, this isn't a zero-sum game. The sexes rise and fall together. As a person who loves and cares about men in my family, my friends, people I want to be romantic partners, I actually do want them to survive and flourish. And if we want our broader society to survive and flourish too, both sexes have to be doing well.
Who's triggered? All right, so I'm gonna read the comments real quick, some of the latest ones, and then we're gonna get to the last one. Earth said this video's garbage. Keith said, what her significant other look like? I wonder. Queez wrote, man, this is dangerous. It is dangerous. This is why we need more of a voice among us, like us, and not even more of a voice, just representation, like you always talk about, being the change. We need more men to address that role of being the change. What did Wayne Dyer say? We don't get what we want, we get what we are. We attract what we are. We don't attract what we want. Men are not watching her women, and I know they're eating it up. Like, that's it. Men are not watching her. Oh, men are not watching her. Women are. I know they're eating it up. Like, that's it. That's a fact. There's the disconnect. I'm bothered when women tell men what men should be doing. Right, because as soon as it's flipped on the other side, then it's a problem. Keith wrote, who said they need to be weak? That's my point, bro. Strong men want strong. Don't say that. Don't say that. I get what you're saying, though, Keith. I get what you're saying. He wrote, strong men want strong women, a woman that's on his level. And I'm gonna, based on me knowing Keith, I want to be, for this particular area that I'm supposed to be strong in, I want you to be equally, I don't know, I know you hear the word yoked in a different way. For me, if I want to be the breadwinner, I don't need my woman to make the same amount of money as me. I don't need my woman to go to the gym and squat the same amount as me. So I don't want to get caught up on that, because I get it. I get it. I get what you're saying. We get what you're saying. Nah, we get what you're saying. This is a 3-part episode. You can explain. All right, so I want to move on. Hold on. Let me move on. We getting through it quickly. I want to show y'all a couple different videos. I thought this was super interesting. Take a look at this. Hold on. So this is Sage Steele, and we're gonna get through these. We still, hopefully 9:15, 9:20. We're working for it. But I want to share this with y'all. This was something that was super interesting to me, and I want to get your opinion on it. So this is Sage Steele. Hold on. Let me make sure that it's
because it was so structured.
Let me know
and
what y'all think about this.
Here as we get set for a wonderful day in sports. Opening day for America's national pastimes. This was about 2 months after he took office. That was an interesting experience in its own right, because it was so structured, and I was told, you will say every word that we write out. You will not deviate from the script, and go. to the word. Like every single question was scripted, gone over dozens of times by many executives, editors and executives.
So what she's saying is when she interviewed Biden, everything word for word you had to say, which makes me think a couple different things. I gotta put her on the spot and say, well, why did you do it? As a journalist, isn't that something that you should stand on and say, nah, I can't do this. Get somebody else to do the interview. This is not a script. This is not a movie script. This is not a TV commercial in which I say this, you say that. No, I'm interviewing you. But she decided to go with it. And then you're complaining now that you're no longer on the show. It would have meant a lot more if you stood on it when it actually was happening, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I was on script and was told not to deviate. It was very much, this is what you will ask. This is how you will say it. No follow-ups. No follow-ups. Next. I knew that this was a lot bigger than just the wonderful editors that I worked with. This went up to the fourth floor, as we said, that we're all the bosses, the top executives, the decision makers are the president of our company, the CEO, where they all work. Here as we.
Okay, we're going to stick to this. We're going to stick to this. And I want to get into this video. We're only going to spend about 15 to 20. I really shouldn't. If I was being a smart person, I'd be like, you know what? It's already 8:58. We could just fill in a couple different videos for the next 10 minutes and then exit out. But I want it packed as much as possible with interesting content. So we're going to get into this. I want y'all to see this. Hold on. We're going to get into this. Patrick Bet-David with his Valuetainment team. Where is it? Where is this it? All right, here we go. Very interesting. Hold on.
Clip 9. Go for it. Play this clip. Watch this.
Biden would actually pardon Hunter Biden, despite him saying pretty.
Yes, as a father, he would.
No.
But
Disturbing.
He knows that he's not going to be convicted. He did not say that about the trial in September because there, the stakes are much higher. He's accused of tax evasion, and the money on which he failed to pay taxes came from foreign sources and is linked to influence buying. In other words, to buy the influence of his father. They can actually track the payments to various Biden members, including payments for Joe Biden's mortgage payments.
Just to be clear, there's actually not any evidence linking any of Hunter Biden's wrongdoings to Joe Biden.
You are incorrect. You are incorrect. We have the bank statements. They've been presented in the House of Representatives.
You mean because he paid back a loan to help buy a car?
No, because he paid routinely.
Y'all see how they jump out? Why don't you ask, what's the evidence? Why don't you ask, tell us more about that? We didn't hear about that. We didn't think that. Why don't you ask these questions when you have somebody who's saying, yo, they actually do have evidence. They presented it here. Ask more questions about that rather than just trying to come to the defense of somebody because you know what your agenda and your station's agenda is. So therefore, you got to make sure that if anybody says anything bad about Biden, we got to defend it. We got to do this. We got to do that, rather than asking questions and allowing somebody to speak who clearly has more information about a particular topic than you.
He paid Joe Biden's household bills.
This has been. Look, if Republicans had that evidence that you are suggesting,
they do.
They would have impeached him by now, and they haven't. Jamal,
I want the audience to know that they do have it.
And by the way, this is a week ago of her saying it on CNN.
I love
Play the Tapper clip. That Tapper has to
say
a
few different clips that we're going to get into.
And Tapper has to say the most painful words. Play this clip.
Listen to this. Listen to this.
Kessler from the Washington
Zoom in a little bit around.
Had a fact check about Joe Biden from earlier this month, noting that Hunter Biden admitted in court in July that he was in fact paid substantial sums from Chinese companies. Kessler wrote, Hunter Biden reported nearly $2.4 million in income in 2017 and $2.2 million in income in 2018, most of which came from Chinese or Ukrainian interests. But this directly goes against what Joe Biden said in the debate in 2020 with Donald Trump. Take a listen.
My son has not made money in terms of this thing about what are you talking about? China.
None of that is true. He made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
that is simply
and various
not
other places.
True.
So it's from two different debates, but
he has to say the words.
Trump was right.
There you go.
Oh my God, that must hurt.
Trump was right. So now that we know that, that's pretty interesting, right? Why would Uncle Joe be lying? What are we hiding? Did the fact checkers, thanks for coming back 4 years later and acknowledging that. I don't know if I'm assuming that that's more of a recent clip. But think about that. Think about that. Ukraine, like we gotta start connecting it. What does Queez always say? Follow the money.
Huh? That must hurt. And so going back to my point, Pat, now the shift is happening right now. This is the month where everything is starting to shift. The stories are coming out. And just off that story of Jake Tapper, the Biden family, so it was Hunter, Jim, Sarah, Haley, and the grandchild hauled in $18 million plus from foreign sources since Biden was vice president. Okay, it's slowly starting to happen. He's falling apart. The laptop being introduced as actual evidence. And I don't think people understand. The amount of stuff that's on the laptop is insane, and it's going to start coming out. And the next 2 months, I think they're going to shift off them.
And it was a FBI, the current FBI AIC agent in charge, that testified in court that the laptop was real. This is not some news report speculation. This was raise your hand and testify. Yep. So number one. Number two is I don't think they're allowing. I'm a little deeper than you. I don't think that on one point. I don't think they're allowing him to speak in public. I think they're sending him to speak in public.
So a lot of people think that now a lot of the news stations are going to come out and highlight the fact that Joe Biden is incapable, so therefore they can pull a little switch, put Michelle Obama and Gavin Newsom in there, or however they figure it out. We'll see. We'll see. I want to fast forward to another clip that's here. I thought that this was interesting.
She knows so long as I
listen to
something looks weird in the other clip. Go ahead, Rip, and then I'm going to give you another clip. And tell me if something looks weird.
This is a little
in the other
spooky,
clip. Go
so
ahead,
y'all
Rob.
pay attention to this one.
She knows so long as she was denied.
What?
Our freedom can never be secured. Since the founding of our ideals, we don't know fully what American soil is.
Yo, I have so much sympathy for Joe Biden, and I really mean that. This is wrong. This is not on him. This is like throwing somebody in the ring. You remember how they put Mike Tyson in the ring and they had to drug him up before the fight because he was acting after he bit off Holyfield's ear? This obviously is not that. But what I'm saying is they're throwing him out there and he's not at his best as far as the ability to compete. Watch Joe Biden, and besides this being the Juneteenth celebration and all the things that I'm seeing in this video that are very just questionable to me, he's clearly like, yo, let this man go. Joe Biden, it's wrong what she's doing. I'm going to show you another clip maybe of like when they said that he may have pooped in his pants. Nobody's proved it or anything like that, but it's yo, let him go. Let him move on. Let him enjoy the rest of his life. This is wrong. But something interesting that they're gonna try to uncover.
Okay, so positive. Now, Rob, go to the clip that everybody on the internet is reacting to. This is Ed Krasenstein that we had on the podcast.
When is this?
Well, no, he just posted this 2 days ago. Okay. People are now claiming that Joe Biden has a different skin color on his neck.
Yo, this
the
is wild.
absurdities never stop. Okay, play this clip and just watch.
Is that you have to
He doesn't even
rate
talk
the
the
market
same way.
a little bit.
Look at the neck.
And the market is that if you have all of the tax breaks, essentially all the tax breaks, all
Is that
of
shadow?
the benefits
I don't
flowing
know.
to the top 1/10 of
not
1%.
shadow.
Look at the
Shadow
difference in
doesn't
color.
Concentration
Like he's almost has on a
including
mask.
going back to the Great
Okay,
Depression.
that is.
Ever.
It looks like.
And so
Now people are going to
one
say
of
it
the
may
things
be a
that worries me
shadow.
most
Just keep
about
watching.
that, John,
Is
not just
that AI creation?
What there is now? Close it. Now go to the comment section. Okay, Zoom in and say something for sure is going on, bro. Explain this, right? Go a little lower. It's the lighting.
And the shadow.
And the shadow is color. It's definitely not lighting. Okay, keep going lower. 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 You'll see more. This one here. What would you call it? Go to the bottom one with the picture. What would you call it? Okay.
Wow.
So go a little lower. Go a little lower.
Am I reaching?
Now,
Are we
and then
reaching?
Look at this one here. This is the worst one. What is that?
That doesn't look
Okay.
like.
What is that?
That's
not.
Is this?
That doesn't
Shout
give
out to
me
Robin
AI
Williams.
vibes because it's moving
Miss
time.
Doubtfire.
So if you go back up at the top, Rob, and play the clip again when the neck is moving. Yeah. Let it just move. Yeah. Leave it alone. Watch this.
All of the tax breaks, essentially all the tax breaks.
That's moving naturally.
All of the benefits flowing to the top 1/10 of 1%.
Okay.
There's
That
never been
almost
as great
looks
a
like
concentration
it's a
of wealth,
different
including
tan.
going back to the Great Depression.
Okay.
Ever.
So you
And
can pause it here now. Few
Yo,
years
Queen
ago,
said
10
it.
years ago,
On
I
everything, I
had
was
somebody
thinking
very
that
interesting
when I
on the
first saw
podcast.
it.
Her name was Jonah Mendes.
Obama.
If you can pull up who Jonah Mendes is.
But listen to how spooky this
Jonah
is.
Mendes was the former disguise officer of the CIA. Okay.
Disguise officer.
And her job was to make, different types of masks of people to make it look real. Do me a favor, Rob, if you can go back to where you were at. Yeah. And go to the top where you Googled her name and type in Bush. Just type in Bush and then go to images. Yeah, right there. And then go to images. She's standing next to Bush, hanging on, holding a mask. It's the one right there, Rob. Go a little bit to the left of the image, the big one you put up. No, the big one you put up, meaning like it's to the left. Rob, right there. It's right in the middle of the screen. No. Right in the middle of the screen, Rob. No, Rob. Right there. Okay, zoom in a little bit on that picture. That's her showing the entire time she's talking to Bush, she had a mask on and Bush didn't recognize her.
Holy crap.
Until she took it off. And she says, no, that wasn't me. That was the mask we made. And by the way, this mask that Jonah Mendes made was when President Bush was president. How long ago was it when President Bush was president?
Oh, my God.
Senior, what year is it, Tom?
80?
90, 88 to 92?
Yeah.
88 to 92.
88 to 92.
So
Clinton was 92
to 2000, and then 2001, which is George Bush, right? So how much better you think we've gotten at making these masks from then to now?
Forget it.
How much better you think we've gotten better at that, right? So
500 times.
Yeah, when I had her on and she told me she was the chief disguise officer of CIA and how she would make, her and her team would make these types of masks. And I would ask her, I said, how many doubles are there? Are there doubles? You'd be surprised. What do people do for Saddam Hussein double? All these other people doubles. Some people are claiming, allegedly, that is a double because there's no way on one end. Let's do this one more time because we didn't even pay attention that we were looking at the guy's neck. Rob, can you go back to the clip of President Biden mumbling? You know, the one that you put up the first, and see if this sounds normal.
Denied. Our freedom can never be secured.
Okay, you can pause it right there. Now go to the other clip of people reacting to saying there's no way this is the same man and see how he speaks in this clip. Audio?
You have to right the market a little bit here. And the market is that if you have all of the tax breaks,
very
essentially
clear.
all the tax breaks, all of the benefits flowing to the top 1/10 of 1%.
You can pause it. Listen, to me, something.
I want to fast forward here.
Of masks.
I want y'all to hear this.
Out at Langley, and we invented a whole new genre of masks. Masks that are.
Keep in mind, this is the former CIA chief of disguise talking. This is not just somebody making this stuff up.
So good, that are so realistic, that you can actually get up close and have a personal contact with someone for an extended period of time.
Dude.
They're good enough that you can brief the President of the United States in the Oval Office wearing a mask. And he isn't sure if it's you or if it's someone else. Those masks were the beginning of a whole new generation of work that we did at the CIA. Once we could make these masks that fit you so well, then we discovered we could make a twin. We could make another you. There could be two of you.
This is the chief disguise officer of the CIA.
The conspiracy
Usually
video.
one extra was all we needed.
So, watch it.
God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
But that's only the tip of the iceberg. As longtime CIA lawyer John Rizzo tells it, the relationship between the spy agency and La La Land is quite cozy. In his new book, Company...
I sent Rob two separate videos.
Sometimes got to just give y'all something to think about. Sometimes got to just give y'all something to think about. First off, I think it's definitely dementia, that Biden's going through. I'm with you on that. The evil of this world is getting exposed. The evil of this world is definitely getting exposed. A lot of us will look into it. Others will just ignore it. It's really on us. It's really on us. We decide what we want to do, and we decide what information is, I guess, important to us or important enough for us to look into more. And we kind of just go from there. But since it is 9:13, and I told y'all I was not playing, I do want to finish off on a positive note, if that's okay with y'all. I want to finish off on a positive note and show you a speech with a quote that probably is one of the greatest quotes that I've heard, because it just makes sense across the board for me when it comes to us looking to become successful in different areas. So I want to finish with this, and then we'll give a word, and then we'll give our feedback, and then we'll do our meditation, and then we'll be out of here. All right. So hold on. Let me pull this up for you. Bring Tom Brady bring the GOAT to the stage real quick for a sec. All right, hold on.
I would encourage everyone to play football for the simple reason that it is hard. It's hard when you're young to wake up in the off season at 6 a.m. to go train and work out, knowing that all your friends are sleeping in and eating pancakes. It's hard when you're on your way to practice, weighed down with all your gear, and it's 90 degrees out and all the other kids are at the pool or at the beach, and your body is already completely exhausted from workouts in 2 days. It's hard to throw, catch, block, and tackle, and hit kids when they're way bigger and way more developed than you, only to go home that night bruised and battered and strained, but knowing you have to show up again the next day for just the chance to try again. But understand this, life is hard. No matter who you are, there are bumps and hits and bruises along the way. And my advice is to prepare yourself, because football lessons teach us that success and achievement come from overcoming adversity, and that team accomplishment far exceeds anyone's individual goals. To be successful at anything, the truth is you don't have to be special. You just have to be what most people aren't. Consistent, determined, and willing to work for it. No shortcuts. If you look at all my teammates here tonight, it would be impossible to find better examples of men who embody that work ethic, integrity, purpose, determination, and discipline that it takes to be a champion in life.
We got to go back to that when he said to be successful in anything.
To be successful at anything, the truth is you don't have to be special. You just have to be what most people aren't. Consistent, determined, and willing to work for it. No shortcuts. If you look...
Yeah. We ain't got to be special. No lie, that gave me goosebumps. I don't know if y'all can see it. That really gave me goosebumps. Are we willing to put in the work? Are we willing to get on this show? You know, how I get on with y'all. Point out all the issues, point out all the problems, highlight some of the solutions, but to actually implement them into our day-to-day lives to where they become our habits. Are we willing to do so? across the board, because everything that we complain about, if we put in our minds that, oh, well, you know, we can't change that. We can't change the world. We can't change this. Why not? Why not? Do you really believe that you can't? Who told you that you can't? Why do you have that mindset? Why can the world be what it is, our culture be what it is in a negative way? But why don't we believe that we can be the person that can change it into a positive way? Because all the people that impacted in a negative way, they didn't sit back clearly and say, oh, we'll never be able to impact it this way. Nah, they're competing. And we're seeing the results of it. We're living the results of it. So therefore, we got to have the same energy. We got to have a greater energy, because we have good on our side. We have good on our side. That should be all that we need. We have good on our side, and it's the righteous thing to do. Have a conversation with yourself. I always tell y'all, man, have that convo with God. Have a convo with yourself. Get that stillness. Get rid of all the distractions. Sit with yourself. Sit with yourself. All the solutions to all of our problems will come to us, I believe, when we're just sitting with ourselves and figuring things out and giving ourselves that stillness that we sometimes need in order to figure out different problems. Figure out how we can become the change that we want to see in the world. Like Queez just said, it starts with you. So I'm not going to be long-winded. It's already 9:18. Let's get our 30 seconds. It's Friday, 30 seconds meditation. Visualize what you need to visualize to finish out this week, finish out this day, and make it that amazing week that we set forth of having on Monday. Figure out what we need to finish. So 30 seconds, meditate, do whatever you need to do, visualize, and I'll see you on 30. 30 seconds, go. All right, y'all know what it is, man. We're here to elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint as well as becoming who and what we need to become in order to lead the people that we need to lead. All right, our communities, our village, our tribes. Let's just play the role. We don't always have to lead from a leadership position. We can lead within our role. All right, whatever that role is, let's make sure that we're becoming the best version of ourselves so that we can deliver that role as best we can. All right, Queez sent the fire emojis. Y'all know what it is. Strength and honor, onward and upward. Get to that bag. Whatever's in your bag, you decide. What's in my bag is health, wealth, integrity, love, and happiness. That's what we're leaning into. Like I said, Queez sent the fire emojis. That means we can end the show. And just want to, before we leave for the weekend especially, salute y'all as I always do. Love y'all, man. Appreciate y'all. Hope y'all have an amazing weekend. And I hope y'all have an amazing day. Spend some time with your family. Appreciate yourself. Appreciate yourself. Do some self-care. Do whatever it is that you need to do to recover. Take some time away, maybe from the electronics, and just get your mind right. Get your mind right, because they may try to convince us otherwise, but we all have a vital role to play in this greater good. So with that, I'll see y'all soon. Oh yeah, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day to all y'all, man. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all, man. Y'all keep leading. Y'all keep showing us the way. I cannot wait. Can't wait